Akabo Waakatu. This is Daku, and today I'd like to share with you what I like to call the scale of supremacy. And as I go over the scale of supremacy, I want you to ask yourself, where do you fall on the scale of supremacy? The scale of supremacy is actually the scale of extremes. It's the scale of, to use common terms, good and evil. The scale of life and death, hot and cold, polar opposites. The scale of extremes. And what we're talking about here is black supremacy, which here will be represented by life, and white supremacy, which here will be represented by death. Now, we often talk about extremes and don't even realize it. When you talk about good and evil, then the far extreme on this chart, the 10, is going to represent the far extreme of evil. The 10 on the positive end is going to represent the far extreme of good. Okay? But we prefer to use the terms life and death. When we're talking about white supremacy and black supremacy, we're just talking about the extremes of good and evil. All right? And many people get turned off automatically when you say anything about color. As soon as you say white, people run and go in the opposite direction. Don't want to hear anything else. Well, if that's the case, this video isn't for you. But I do encourage people to think and not regurgitate and keep an open mind. All right? And take the concept, if you can't take the language, and translate it into a language that you can understand. All right? But again, the far extreme on the negative side is death, represented by the number 10 on this scale, and it is white supremacy. The far extreme on the positive side is life, represented by the positive number 10, and it is black supremacy. All right. Now, like I said, what I want you to do is look at this scale and try to figure out where you fall on the scale. Now, it's been said that the extremists are the ones that change things. The closer you are to the extreme end on either side, the closer you'd be, or the more of a possibility or probability you would have to change it for good or for the positive, the better or the worse. Let me put it that way. All right. So what is white supremacy? White supremacy, if you can see this, is exploitive. It's destructive. It's exclusive, overindulgent, chaotic, unjust, and it's based on man-made law. Okay? Now, before I go any further, I don't want you to think that this is a theory that we made up. This is the evidence that has been presented to us. This is the knowledge that has been revealed or manifested by white supremacists. Okay? Now, when you talk about black supremacy, over here, you don't have the same examples. You don't have the same manifestation. So you see it on both sides. You see white supremacy, you see black supremacy, but they're made up of different attributes. So again, white supremacy attributes are exploitive, destructive or destruction, exclusivity, overindulgence, chaos, it's unjust, and it's based on man-made law. Black supremacy, or good, or life, or positive, the extreme positive, is fair, harmonious, inclusive. It's based on order, balance, reciprocity, justice, universal law. Again, where do you fall on the scale? Death, the further you are to the negative 10, or white supremacy, the more you contribute to the death of not just yourself, but other people. The more you fall on the positive side over here of life, the closer you get to the extreme of life, the more you contribute to life. So ask yourself this: when you're giving, are you giving to support death, or are you giving to support life? Are you supporting that which is going to lead to death, or are you supporting that which is going to lead to life? Okay, and support life. So are you supporting death, or are you supporting life? Now, these are the far extremes, 10 and 10 on this scale of supremacy. These are the far extremes. But where do you find yourself in these extremes? Because those of us that are extreme don't want to accept somebody that's going to give an 8 effort. Okay? That's the extreme of life. Somebody that's extreme on the death side, they don't want to accept somebody that's going to give a negative 8 effort. They want somebody to give a 10 effort. All right? But there's many things that prevent us from giving that 10 effort on either side. So those of us that are extreme have to understand that while the extreme is what we want if we're in support of death, the extreme is what we strive for if we're in support of life, most people aren't going to be able to be extreme for whatever reason. They're not going to make that move. So I say, as long as you're on this side of zero, moving towards the extreme, then you're in support of life. If you're on this side of zero, moving towards the extreme, then you are in support of death. Okay? Now sometimes, even though, say you're a 1 on the positive side, that means that you're more likely to be manipulated by the death side. Okay? And if you're a negative 1, then you're more likely to be manipulated for the cause of life. So you have these different numbers that are representing how close you are to the extreme of one or the other, death or life. 1s on either side can be rehabilitated. 2s may even be able to be rehabilitated. 3s, but the closer you get to the 10, the less of a possibility it is for you to move towards the other end of the spectrum. One end of the spectrum is death, the other end is life. Now, it's just a simple chart. I want you to think about it. When you're giving, if you're giving that which supports life, then you're supporting life. Even if you're on the death side of things. If you're giving that which supports death, even though you're on the life side of things, you're supporting death. So we need to think about what it is that we're doing to support our respective poles. This has been Daku Akabo wa Akatu.